Welcome to our today's webinar about advanced test management with Codebeamer. I am Peter Belcock, and with me today is Checkers Popovsky, our senior IT consultant, which you should already be familiar with because nearly all of our webinars. And with that said, let's jump directly in our agenda for today, because we are probably already thrilled and want to see what will be the topic. So, we will go a little bit over the roles of the test management, the challenges, especially for regulated industries, because there are special challenges. And the more you have to be regulated, the more complex your test management will be. We are going over key regulatory standards that you can cover with Codebeamer. We go over the traceability and how that helps with your test management and with your products in regulated industries. We go over documentation. Then we will dive into examples, and then at the end, like always, you will have some time for your QA session. And one thing that I wanted to mention is that webinar will be recorded so that you can later on always come back and have a look at our webinar. And if you want to read something, you can do that always. And if you have some further questions, you are always free to reach out to us because we are here to help. And with that introduction, I would like to give over to Checkers so that he can.
Okay, thank you, Peter, for the introduction. Hello, everybody. Today I will guide you through the topics that Peter mentioned. And let's start by going through the role of test management in regulated industries. So first we'll take a look at the aspects of ensuring product quality, so to make sure that what we deliver is done according to best practices and international standards. We need to verify and validate all the parts of the process along the way. So this effective test management helps in early identification of defects or of issues which can be addressed before the product reaches the market. So it's really important in any R&D process. And thanks to that, any additional risks and costs can be avoided as early as possible. So systematic management allows the company to keep the performance consistent under various conditions. And the second aspect that we can look into while taking care of test management in Codebeamer is ensuring compliance with standards and requirements. Because regulated industries must comply with plenty of different standards such as ISO, IEC, ASPICE or FDA. And thanks to the test management, the requirements can be met and traced end to end. So systematic management allows the systematic management of tests and testing activities documented in centralized system. All of this allow the audits to become just a formality. And as we've touched on the topic of standards and requirements, I believe that everybody could think of some kind of regulations that apply to their industry specifically. So, for example, if you work with medical equipment, you have to keep in mind standards regarding patient safety, such as FDA 21 CFR or ISO 13485. So all the medical devices must comply with various international regulations in order to be released to markets across the world. And these standards are complex, they are time consuming, so it is worth to use a tool that allows to maintain a detailed record of all the requirements of the needs of conducted tests, so that it can all be audited easily and without any loss of time more than necessary. I think that automotive could prove by far the most prominent example of Codebeamer's utility in regulated industry. Safety standards such as ISO 26262 or ASPICE can be effectively achieved with Codebeamer's features, allowing for easy traceability and documentation of all executed tests. So with any kind of rapid advancements in technology, it's important to keep track of all the changes that happen within the project or within the specific product and ensure their compliance with the standards. Same can be said about the aerospace or avionics industry. So any standards for the user safety or for the software must be taken into consideration while developing these airborne systems and making sure that human lives are safe via the thoroughly tested and validated products. So, as I've mentioned already in the previous slide, just to name a few regulations that can be easily tracked and audited using Codebeamer. You can, for example, take into account the FDA regulations such as 21 CFR Part 820 or Part 11, or ISO standards for the medical equipment or for the automotive, or the IEC versions similar to ISO standards. And now, for the moment, before we go directly into the examples of test management within Codebeamer, let's talk about how traceability and documentation is done within the application. Because we have to understand the importance of the whole process. So, using Codebeamer, even the very fact that you have tools to track and store the information is a huge benefit for your company. So if you want to comply with all the standards, it's really useful to have such a software. With the features, you can easily prove that all necessary steps for tests, for quality assurance, for product safety, all the steps have been taken. So preparing documentation for the audit is fast and reliable if you're using built-in Codebeamer's capabilities. And Codebeamer is actually one single tool that will provide you with the whole end-to-end traceability, so you can easily unify the approach to all of your projects by using one single application. So any kind of project or the product that you are developing right now, you can put into Codebeamer and make sure that it's unified with all the other work that you're doing right now. And with this consistent and reliable process, it's way easier to identify and track or resolve all the issues, risks, or defects or bugs that may come up during the development process. And thanks to that, Codebeamer supports the companies trying to fulfill all the high quality and safety standards specific for their environment. With Codebeamer, you also have one tool to trace and document all the requirements, changes, risks, and tests that relate to them. So you have one big tree of all the references and relations in one place. So the whole development team will have a single source of truth, and this vastly boosts the transparency of the whole process. With all that in place, the cooperation can be a lot smoother and safer than it would if different people were working with different tools. And next on the list of the Codebeamer's benefits for test management is the features that help us with the impact analysis of changes and the version control. So you can make sure that everything is up to date and clear for the management and for the whole team. So thanks to that, you can make sure that every new functionality that you introduce or that you come up with is thoroughly tested and maintained during the whole process. So in summary, understanding all these key regulatory standards and all these features that are available within Codebeamer is crucial for the organization and plays a vital role in ensuring compliance or enhancing product quality or mitigating risks, and basically supporting the development process on every step that you take all the way from the very idea to the market release. And now, after this short introduction, we'll go directly to the Codebeamer to show a bit more about how it's exactly done and what can be achieved using the application. Let's give it a moment to refresh. And we are within the Codebeamer tracker sheet. So this view, those of you who already seen the previous webinars should be familiar with. We are within the automotive template that was provided by W-ITC. It's done according to the ISO standard. And now we'll take a look at the whole process of going from the requirements to the test management and test execution and checking test coverage within Codebeamer. So we'll be working on the information that's already here to save some time and be able to show a bit more. We will not be creating whole new trackers. So we're starting as inside of the process according to the V model. We are starting with the requirements. In this case, I've opened the system requirement specifications. So those are the requirements that apply to the whole system. And inside we can see the requirements that were provided within the template. They are visible here with their names and descriptions inside. If we click on any of them, the details page will show us what are the details of the requirement. If we want to add a new requirement, we can do it directly here. We can also open any kind of the requirement we already have and add the missing information or edit it using the pencil icon. So inside of here, with these fields that are provided within the default tracker item or with the fields that we can customize, we can specify all the information that are necessary for the clear description of the requirement. And after the requirement is created, after it's approved by the team, we go further. So we create a test case. I believe it's the best way to approach such things because after we create the requirement, we know exactly what we want to test. So we can either create a test case directly from here by generating test case to the specific requirement, but in that case we will have to edit the test case that we will create. So we can do it in a more efficient way by just going to creating a test case tracker, and inside of the test case tracker, once again I'm using the test case tracker that was provided in the template, we can create test case inside of here. So by default we are seeing the document view. In the document view we see the name, the description and the test steps inside of here, and as well as the details on the right. If we want to create it in a more approachable way, I would say, we have to go to the table view, and in the table view we create a new item, and in this new item we have all the fields that are necessary in order to describe the test case in a clear way. So we can add the parent item, add type, assign it directly to the person or to the role, add the requirements that should be verified, define the pre-actions, post-actions, choose if the test case should be reusable or not. If we choose true for the reusable field, then the test case can be used as a template for the future tests. So that's a quite useful feature if we are doing a lot of similar test cases, of if we are using this test as a template for the future projects, then this field should be put on as a true. And in here we have description, test parameters, which will be used during the test execution for this specific test case. We can either input them in here in two possible ways, for example like that, or we can import the Excel document directly to the Codebeamer. And after we know what the parameters are, we specify the steps by choosing if it's critical or not, describing the action, and optionally adding in the expected result. So right now I will show you how it looks on the specific test case that was created already. So directly here, and we see what requirement is being verified, what is the priority, if the test is a template or not, the description, and what are the steps we taken during the execution of this specific test case. Of course, if we do more than one test, which we usually do, then we will probably want to create a whole set of tests so that it's easier to do their work by the testers. We have a specific tracker for the test sets within Codebeamer, and once again I will go directly to, or maybe I will start with creating a new one. Right, that would be a better approach, I think. So once again, it's quite similar to what we've seen in the test cases. So we can specify the parents, the status, the type of the test set. We also add the configuration. Configuration is the set of parameters that should be taken into account during this test set execution. We can also add release that is connected to this test set, add the name, add sequentiality. It's also really important because if we specify the test sets to be sequential, then it will have to be done step by step and test by test according to the sequence that we provide within the test set. If we specify it to not be sequential, then the testers can take the test cases out of the test set in any way they want. And once again, we specify the description, test parameters we can specify for the whole test set. So if the test case doesn't have any kind of specified parameters inside, then it will take the test parameters directly from the test set that contain this test case. And in here we see that we can add test cases. It's really easy because we just have to go through the tracker tree that is seen in here, and we just take it from the right to left, and we can just put it in here. We can also add the whole test sets here, or we can use the library if we have some. So it's really easy to create the set out of the cases that we already have. Once again, I will not be creating a new set here. I will just go to the already created one and show you how it looks. So as same way as I was describing it, we have the configuration assigned to the test set. We have the release. We know when was it submitted, by who, if it is sequential. We can also trace the items connected to this specific test set based on the test cases that are inside. We see which test cases are inside, if there is any test run already connected to this specific test set, and so on. So with the whole test set already created, we will probably want to go directly to the execution of tests, because that's the most important part actually. We are doing all of this in order to test if something's working, right? So creating new test run is quite easy from the panel of any kind of test case or test set. We just click the icon, creating new test run. We see a lot of prompts jumping up in here because we are working on a template, so not everything is connected as it should, but we just create that run. We want to run all tests, and in here we can specify the information. If we have any, we check if we want to run with the specific test configuration, which release do we want to assign this test run to, and after we save it, it will take a moment to create a test run specifically for this test case, this test set actually. And now we see it in here. We see that there are still 3 remaining test cases. On the pie chart, we see the progress. We see the test cases that are contained within this test run, and we see all the details in here directly below the details. So now, if we were to run this test run, to execute this test run, we have 2 possible ways, because we can do it directly in Codebeamer, or we can do it in Excel. If we were to do it in Excel, we will see the exact same details as we've seen inside of the Codebeamer panel, and we are given the Excel document with yellow fields that should be filled by the tester. So we have a drop-down list with the run result, with the actual result and the conclusion, and running time to be input here. And after all of that is filled, we go back to the Codebeamer, and inside of here we will have if we were to export it, we will have the field that will allow us to import the results back here, and the Codebeamer will understand them in the same way that it will understand the results that will be executed within the application itself. And if we were to run it within the Codebeamer itself, I will show you in a moment how this looks like, because now the Codebeamer has to create the test run window. So we see that the test has already started, the time is passing here, and we are going case by case and step by step in each case in order to check if everything is fine. So we see the description, the pre-actions, and the steps that are to be taken by the tester responsible for this specific run. So it's the action, the expected results, and the actual results that can be input by the tester. And at the bottom we see a panel with the buttons that will allow us to quickly go through the test cases, so we can pass, fail, or block, as well as clear if something is not right, make it not applicable, or report a bug directly from here if something is wrong. So for now, let's just pass through this first test case. We see that if we don't input any kind of result, then the Codebeamer by default copies the expected results from this column into the actual result column. Right. And now we see that the first test case has been fully completed. We are prompted to input any conclusion if we have some, but we can just save it, and it will go directly to the second test case. And in here, let's say that the first 2 steps passed. Let's say that the third step failed, and those 2 pass again. And now we are prompted with a bit different window, because one of the test steps has failed, so we can report a bug directly from here. It's really useful for the tester, because they don't have to open new windows or save the information somewhere else. They just do it directly in the process. So they can create a new bug in here. They can choose from the existing bugs for the same test case. So if the bug is being repeated, then they can report it again. Or if they are not sure if the same bug occurred anytime, then they can search for it and make sure that they don't create any kind of duplicate reports. But for now, let's say we don't want to report the bug yet. And for the third case, let's say that everything passed again. And after we've finished, we are back in the panel for the test set that we were working on. We see that the status is finished, but the result is failed. It's because one of the test cases failed, and we can see the details here. So any kind of information provided by the tester will be available easily for the manager or the owner that is working with this product and with the specific aspects of its development. And now, after we have this test run executed, after we have plenty of test runs executed, after we have test cases created, we can go directly to the beginning, to the place where the requirements are specified. So let's go directly to the system requirement specifications. And in here we have panel with test coverage. It's quite a powerful tool that will help you to make sure that all the features that you want to have within your application or within your product, or all the requirements, everything is fulfilled. So I will be using this preset set of filters in here, and I will check what will the test coverage show me. And yeah, in case of this system requirement specification, I see that none of the requirements has been covered, and that is because I haven't created any specific test. So that is an information for me that the tests I've created are not connected to the system requirement specification. So I have to either check the connections or make sure that the system requirement specifications has these tests. So if we were to successfully audit the whole project and make sure that everything is done, then we will probably have to make sure that everything is either passed or not applicable, and that way we will see all the tests covered. So our goal is to have these numbers equal, and in the best case equal to this number also. And we can also export the results directly to the office. So if any member of our team is more comfortable with working, for example, in Excel, or looking at tables in Excel, or we want to send the audit outside of the company somewhere due to some reasons, then we can export it to the office, and we don't have to give access to the Codebeamer to anybody who shouldn't be given the access. And as for the examples with Codebeamer, I think that will be everything. So let's just get back to the presentation. And now it's a moment for me to ask if you have any questions. Okay, so we don't have any questions. So remind you that if you have any questions that will come up later, or if you want to reach out directly to us, then you can contact us as the email via the email address visible on the screen. And just as a quick reminder, tomorrow, so on the 26th of June, we have an event in Wrocław. So it will be a networking event with the possibility to understand Codebeamer a bit better and get to know us. So if you want to meet us or want to understand something more about the software that we're talking about today, then you are welcome to join us, register on the website, and meet us in the TreeCube on Januszowicka 5. And that will be all from our side. So thank you for your attention, and I hope to see you tomorrow. So goodbye.